Welcome to Pool by Design Day 6, brought to you by Diego and Potencia Ventus. So thank you very much, Potencia, for making this possible. Today, we're going to talk with users. Last time, we learned about step 1, discover CIs. What is what we want to discover? Desperate CIs. Why desperate CIs? Because they're going to be the ones that try an unknown product, our product, a startup. They are hard combinations to find that can end up being pretty unexpected, and they are really difficult to define a priori on paper. So to spot them, we will look inside our funnel, and we will learn by contrast, comparing our very best users with users stuck here in the middle of the funnel. That is going to allow us to see things like what Twitch saw, where they had two completely different type of users that behave in different ways, where the ones playing video games had really high retention and organic growth. It was something that, because of the contrast, it was obvious for them that they were much better. So today, let's see who should we talk to, what to ask them, and how do we get them on a call to ask them these things. So let's start from the funnel. We have our mindset funnel. How do we know for our company if this is a sign up, or this is 3 times, or this is 15? Is explained in this video. Today, I just want you to assume we know this for our company. The question right now is, how do we convert that into something that we can action to call specific people? So if the beginning is signups, imagine that we're going to create a list with all the signups. And now we're going to slice it. We're going to create buckets, groups of signups based on what? The mindset stage. So if they sign up and didn't use it, we will have one bucket that we will not look into that now. Then we have people trying. Use it 1 or 2 times, but not 3, right? We will call them BA1, being activated. They are in the process of being activated. Then a bucket with people that use it from 3 to 14 times, like they are integrating, BA3. And then the hard activated that we know once they get to this point, that we calculate based on what we saw in the other video, this means they dealt with all the blockers. Now they're really using the product. So now they are hard activated, and we expect high retention from them. And I'm saying here 15 to 39. Why? We want to create even another threshold here for our super heavy users. So we can talk with the best of the best to see like why it works so well for them. So we will have also like the HA40 here. When I'm talking about times, what I mean is repetitions of the core action, that thing that represents the user completing the task. In the example of Canva, the task is edit photos. How can we measure that? With export photo. For you, this action can be different, but we are talking about this repetition. And the more times they do it, the more signal we have that everything is working well, the product fits, they are not finding blockers until they get here. Okay, so remember, we have this list of signups. We have the sign-up date, the user ID, and now we have the core action. We are going to calculate this, let's say today. So today, this user that signed up 3 years ago did 270 core actions. That's great, super hard activated, right? But we have another question, like when was the last time that you used it? So we want to calculate also number of days since they did the last core action. Now, we will repeat this analysis next week to update this list and talk with different people. You see here a hard activated user, and maybe you expect that when you calculate this next week, this number goes up. But now that we know the last core action was 37 days ago, when we update the list, probably he's going to stay there too. The only thing that grew is this number. Now, what do we do with this? We are going to organize them in these buckets. We're going to have the buckets, as we explained before, the BA1, 3, 15, and 40, representing each mindset stage. But we want to keep this also in mind, like, it's not the same somebody with 270 and the last correction was within the last 2 weeks than if it was like 6 weeks ago. Somebody with just 2 corrections is not necessarily somebody with any problem. If the last correction was done in the last 2 weeks, they are okay. If it was like 4 weeks ago, it's not that okay, right? So we will have all the users. And I wanted to show you this specific list because this is real data from a real company, not like a fictional example. So you see how things look in reality, and they look messy, but you can also see patterns. You can see people that just arrive and they are doing their thing, and people that arrived in the past and they are gone, a lot of them. You can think that 15 corrections or even 40 are not that many, yeah, but you can see how not a lot of people got there. But look at this, the ones that arrived, they stayed. Versus just this number of people that just did 1 or 2 corrections, and then they left. They barely used the product. Look at the massive difference here. So if we look at this list, we see everyone had more than 40 corrections. So they're going to be here, right, in this column. If we look at number of days since the last correction, we see that seems to be between 28 and 41, as in here. The idea with these 2 lists is that we will use these to decide who to talk to, and then when we want to talk with them, we don't need to ask a developer to make a query to get a list. We already have the list. These 7 people are actually these 7 people. So both are connected. You create this list, this bucket report out of this list, and when you decide on the bucket report, you use the list to see who to talk to. Great. So what buckets do we use? First, we're going to talk with the best of the best versus what you believe is the best. Why is that? We tend to think that our product is always incomplete, that we need more features, that we need to improve things. If there are people in that corner there are people right now that love your product as is, without any further change. You don't need to add anything. You don't have to change anything. It just works. Remember that we even went farther than just hard activated, like heavy users. They are using it a lot and use it recently. Now, these people here and what we believe is here is not necessarily the same as we saw in the last talk. So we want to contrast that. Write this thing down before you talk with them so you can really see the contrast. If you don't write it down, you will talk with them and you will say, yeah, that's what I expected. Maybe not. Round 2. We will want to talk with BA recently inactive versus all the hard activated. Kind of like a second round of conversations. Why is that? First, you can think, hey, what is the problem with the people here? Problem with them is that they didn't find a blocker yet. It's okay. They have just a few corrections, and it's okay. Let them be. There are just 2 places where these people can go. They can become hard actives, and then you will talk with them, or they will drop, and then you will talk with them. The difference is when you talk with them here, you can profile them. Oh, this is who you are. But I don't know if the product works or not. If you wait, you will know if it actually worked or if it didn't. And there is a big difference. And we tend to, when we are thinking about talking with users, is just let's send emails and talk with whoever replies just to try to understand who they are. Well, now you see that you have to be careful You want to talk with specific people and ask them specific things. And of course, you can talk with different people and merge all the feedback in a single thing, because when they are talking with you, the feedback means different things. Somebody here can be ecstatic. 2 weeks later, not that ecstatic. So careful. Second question, why here at integrating and not at trying? We're going to start with people that the product was almost there. Like they explore, they tried, and it's when they were integrating that something didn't work. Maybe because there was a big blocker, maybe because they were trying to use it for something unexpected. At trying, they thought that maybe it could work, they realized that it didn't. The thing is, here at trying, we are gonna see like a lot of different cases. There will be more noise. And with noise, I don't mean useless information, useless data. What I mean, if you remember from the last day, noise is data without clear patterns. As in, you're gonna talk with 50 people and the 50 look completely different. While at integrating, there was already a filtering. A lot of people dropped before that, so less variance. It will be easier to see patterns. And of course, here it's much easier to see the patterns at hard activated. And the last thing that is, okay, if I'm talking about recently inactive, why at risk? It's hard to talk with these people. They tried to integrate, failed, and failed a month ago in this example. So they move on. And it's not that easy to get them on the phone. So you can also explore at risk, knowing that some of them are not really at risk. They will come back. Maybe they just didn't need the tool for a couple of weeks, and it's okay. But there will also be some that are on their way down. So it's a good place to intercept users that are about to churn. Okay, so now that we have the buckets and we understand the logic, what is what we want to learn? So if you remember Haley from the Mindset Funnel talk, what we want to do with somebody like Haley is to do a customer instance map. Remember, with one massive thing, that is, we know that it worked in this example or it didn't if we talk with somebody else that was BA inactive. And that means a lot. It's a fact that it worked, or it's a fact that she left. How do we build this thing? What we want is to ask questions so we get to a point where we can write down a story like the one that I'm going to say. So it's about asking questions to build this final story, and with it, we will be able to easily fill the map. And the story will be something like, once you finish the conversation and you start writing that down, okay, so you were using Apple Photos to edit one photo a week to post on the company Instagram account that we are talking about, the task. You were doing everything on your own, write the post, edit the photo, post, measure results. We are talking about part of the context. Then your workload changed, and now you had to post 10 times a week. This is when we are looking at context change. And because that, Apple Photos stopped working because it was too slow. You knew about Photoshop Elements, so you decided to give it a try and realized that it was more complicated than Apple Photos. So searching on Google, you found another option that you never heard about before, that is Canva. Out of desperation, you decide to give it a try. And it worked really well because it's really simple and allowed you to post so many photos so quick. You were using only Canva for the last 6 weeks, so you ended up editing a ton of photos, as in more than 40, so HA40, HA plus in this example. This is what we want after a conversation with a user. We want the whole story. Now, how do we get to this story? With a set of smaller stories for like the Discovering Us story that talks about, we will see in a second. And how do we understand that? We will have a toolbox with questions. Now, why is this? I don't want you to have a script like, okay, these are the 5 or 10 questions, and you ask them like a robot. Because a lot of times when you ask something, that can be replied in a lot of different ways. And it's not about the question and answer, it's about you want a part of the story to be able to complete the big story. So if what you ask the first time doesn't work, you will try again and again because you know what you are looking for. So it's not about questions, it's about these stories. There are 5 stories: the discovering us, the task and past, the inability, the exploring, and the fit. One big rule before we get into the stories. The most important thing to keep in mind when you are talking with them. If you just remember one thing, remember this. Don't assume. Don't assume anything. And the more obvious and logical to you that it looks, the more important that is that you ask to confirm. Because this, in the obvious that later is not so obvious, is where all the details and all the insights are hidden. So let's see what I mean with that. Let's see what to ask to uncover the stories, starting with the hard activated OK, like this. In this example, 40 plus. That for your company can be maybe 100 plus. Remember. So the discovering us story. For each example, for each story, I'm going to start with the red question. It's not that it's necessarily a bad question. I just want to illustrate how we usually only use that question and how it gets you imperfect data. So you have to complement that. And when we are thinking about one of the key questions to ask them is like, how did you find us? And Haley will say, yeah, I found you on Google, on the search results. And we will be like, okay, I have to tell my SEO that he's doing a great job. No. We are not looking for that. The discovering a story is where we are trying to understand if we are a default or we are a non-default. Remember, the difference is that they know us from before. And the difference is absolutely massive because somebody that doesn't know us from before will try everything else first. So the profile is going to be different than somebody that heard a lot of things about us, and when their solution broke, they kind of knew where to go. Now, we know that the end game is to become a default solution. So knowing, okay, like this person knew about us, let's explore also like what is going on. Like it seems like a group of people is talking about us. Like we became the default in a cluster. Remember, you don't become the default like everywhere at once. It's like small clusters. Maybe you found one. Explore there. And you have to follow up questions. If she knew us from before, like what is what you heard? Because what she heard resonated, connected really well. Like, yeah, Apple Photos that didn't work. I heard about you, and this is what I need. If she never heard us from before, she found like an ad or a search result or something like that, right? What is what you were expecting when you read that? Now, the assumption that I always put like in this purple box. We tend to assume somebody came, yeah, it's because our ads or our SEO and they are really persuasive. If you're a default solution, they are coming despite how good or bad your ads are, or even your homepage is, as we saw in previous talks. If you're a non-default, it's much harder. Maybe your ads were actually good, or maybe she was just so desperate that there was just a single word in that ad that is like, yeah, maybe this is it. So this is why you check that. Okay, so now that we frame a little bit if she knew us or not, and also I put the stories in an order where it follows like kind of a natural flow of a conversation where you expect with something like really soft, like, hey, tell me about like, how did you find us? And you keep going down. Now we start getting a bit deeper. We want to understand what is it trying to do? What is the task? The problem with the task is that if you ask, okay, so what are you using the pod for? That maybe we don't even ask that because it's obvious, right? If you're Canva, yeah, you came here to edit photos. Why asking for that? Because there are a lot of details and even just edit photos is not enough. We need to triangulate with other things to really grasp what is it trying to do, what is the real task. Things like, what is success? So you would say, really edit photos really quick. Good. What were you using before? This question is critical. Among other things, it tells you like the mindset in terms of what is the product category that I'm using to do the task. Therefore, what price do I expect? What features do I expect? How do I see this thing? How important it is for me? A lot of things are hidden on not the same using Apple Photos than using Photoshop before. Like you are understanding the task in a different way. How are you using it? Yeah, I'm doing everything on my own. How often? All these things will help us also understand the inability. So just asking, what are you using the product for is clearly not enough. We need all of these. One example, she can reply edit photos and mean quick edit to post on Instagram quick twice a day, but she can also mean, or a different person in this case, yeah, edit photos, that is, I do like a super deep edit of a photo that takes me a couple of days for a YouTube thumbnail image because that image is super important and can make or break a video. Both will reply the same thing. Also, this insight is clearly telling us that we can't use a survey to get this type of data because they will reply this and we are missing on all of this. And why they ended up using us and why it worked is partly because of all this nuance here. The assumption that everyone has the same task. We don't even ask, what do you use it for? It's obvious, right? Yeah, careful with that. And now that we know that, we want to understand the inability. And the inability is always going to be hidden here. We tend to ask like, so why did you switch? And we can get a summary reply, something like, or even a bad reply. Nah, like the other one didn't work for me. We didn't know why. Or the other one was slow. But we don't know enough to leverage that information. Can we find more people like them? Like, we don't know enough with that. What is what we want to know? If there is an inability, it's because task, context, or solution, like something changed there. Or there is a new task, or context changed and the old solution doesn't work anymore, or the old solution, like task and context didn't change, the old solution changed, became worse. It has to be one of these three usually, most of the time. So we want to learn what is that. And one way to do that, it can be asking like, why it doesn't work anymore? That it's kind of a triggering question, like why Apple Photos doesn't work. Because sometimes the answer to that is like, no, it still works. So you also, they don't say anything, you want to check for that. Why is that? Because when you have an inability, like something, you are not achieving something, the very first thing that you will do is try to use, in this case, Apple Photos in a different way to see if you can be faster. And sometimes, because you know how Apple Photos work, you will try to complement that with something else. So you are actually not switching solutions, you are stacking solutions. But if you discover that you are part of one of these stacks, maybe you don't need to be super broad as a solution, you just need to fix that. Remember the example with Segment. Segment was offering the whole analytics suite with the graphs and the reports and everything, plus a way to connect all the data sources. And what they realized asking these questions is nobody wanted to switch their current like analytics visualization graphs tool. They just wanted the other part. So they were stuck in it, using segment just for a thing, not for the whole thing. You want to check for that. Also, we want to understand like this change that I mentioned, the task, context, or solution. And maybe she remembers or maybe she doesn't. So you can explore that in different ways. Like, okay, what changed before you switch? Like, obviously in these cases, I went from 1 photo a week to 10 a week. But if she doesn't remember that, you can also push with, why now? Like, you could have come to Canva 4 months ago. You came 6 weeks ago. Why? There is a reason. Chase that reason. It's gonna get you to the story here. What is what we assume? We assume two things. One, that people switch and they can be stuck in, and that they switch because our product is better. It has more value. It's obviously better than the alternative. Oh yeah, Canva is much simpler than. No, like there is a much bigger story of why she switch here. So don't assume that. We are getting there. 2 more. Exploring story. Now that we know most of the map, we know that she had a task and a solution. Something changed, so it broke. Now it's time for her to find something new, to explore solutions. What is what we ask? We ask about us. So how did you find us? Like before, right? No. If, as we check here, she didn't know us from before, you can be certain that she checked a lot of things before. So don't fall into the assumption that she found our great ad and it was a decision of yes or no, so the ad is bad. No. It's she had a problem, an inability, and started exploring solutions. So what else did you try before you arrived here at Canva? And if you arrived at Canva, that also means that whatever you tried, it didn't work. So why is that? And knowing the previous journey from the solution that she was using for years, and then the solutions that she was trying for weeks until she got to us, like this intermediate step is going to tell us a lot about her context and what fit is, because we will see she has that context and Photoshop Elements didn't work, and she had that context and the other tool didn't work. That can explain why we work. That is going to give you a lot of context. Finally, the FET story, where, remember, perfect fit is when our product helps them do the task under their context. So we want to see why both connect so well. But when we are talking with users, we tend to look for, we assume that the product is bad, that it's incomplete, so we are looking for things to complete it. But if you are talking with a hard activated plus okay, the product is working as is. So whatever she replies to what are you missing, and she will reply things, because everyone wants more. These are just nice to have wishful thinking features. Like, it's a fact that the product works as is, and whatever is missing is not a killer blocker. So don't worry about that. Instead, what we want to know is why it works so well for you. Because I know that HA plus are in this example like 5%. So 95% are having problems with here or there. And for this 5%, everything is perfect. Let's try to understand why. So why is it working so well for you? We know a lot of the story, obviously, because of everything that we explore. But you can keep looking into how she perceives the whole thing. What she feels is the strongest value. So can you try to sell Canva to me? Like, explain me. Try to convince me to use it. And you will see how she explains that. That is going to be extremely useful to understand how they perceive it. And you can compare also that perception with the reality because now you know her whole story. We also assume that because they are here, everything was and is perfect. Not necessarily. So we want to check also is like, were there a moment where you were about to churn? Or did you cheat on me? Did you try something else while integrating Canva? That is interesting to know, right? We assume that they are great, and we also assume that we still have to add things to the product instead of assuming that the product can be perfect as is, but there could have been problems. We want to learn that. Good. So we have our 5 stories made with a lot of different questions. I gave you some. You can add more because what you're trying to do is understand this. And there will be specific questions that fit your product better. And with that, we can build a story. And with the final story, we can build the CI map. But now, when we know all of this, we can answer the mother of all questions. That is, why us? She could have chosen any other solution out there. She ended up choosing Canva. Why? Well, the why is a really complicated question that has a whole path of events, a series of events that happen for her to get there. Now you understand that. And once you understand that, you can find more people like her. You can see what blocked her. And now we will talk with the other group to see like how they are different. The VA inactive. So we are going from the best of the best to these champs here, right? Now, let's do the 5 stories again. Nah, it's not needed. It's the same 4 stories with an unhappy ending. It's the same journey, but it's different destination. So what is the unfit story? That is only the only thing that is different. It's about like, why did you leave? But if you ask that, or you have a survey, like an exit form that asks like, hey, why are you canceling your subscription? No, it's expensive. No, I don't use it often. It's not telling us anything. First, depending on who you ask this question, if they are here or they are activated, even expensive means completely different things. Right? Like here is expensive pretty much on paper. Integrating expensive is like, yeah, I'm not really using half of the things. And with hard activated expensive is, it was not expensive before. I use it a lot. Now I don't use it anymore or not that frequently. It became expensive. So why did you leave? It's a kind of what we're looking at, but a really bad question. Think that some people love your product and some people like failed at it. But that means like some things work or not. Or in other words, if you are stuck here, it can be because the product can be a good fit, but you found a big blocker, something that we can solve. Or maybe you were trying to do something that the app is not designed to do, this unexpected case, and we can't really help you. So it's more like wrong people in the funnel versus a blocker in the funnel. How to know if the problem is one or the other? We need to understand what worked and what didn't in depth. And because we asked them the previous stories, we know all of that. Whatever they tell us, plus everything that we know, is going to help us understand that. Also, knowing what are they using now, the same as we ask them, hey, you tried Photoshop Elements and didn't work, like this set of trying different solutions until she got to us. Now we became one of these. So we want to at least understand, like, where are you going with this? Knowing what are you using and if it's working right now is going to help understand, like, what was the problem here. Much better than why did you leave? And the assumption, we tend to assume that it's like because we don't have enough value. So let's add more features. And this is how we see churn or not activation. It's like, no, we need like just to add more push and add more features, then they will love it and they will stay. No, you see that is more nuanced than that. Now, something to keep in mind when talking with people. We are talking about the BA inactive. They tend to die quick. 2 or 3 weeks and it's over. The hard activated, it can take a while to get here, and then they can stay here for a really long time. When you're asking these things, if a lot of time passed, the problem with hard activated is that they will forget a lot of things. So 2 things here. 1, you usually want to talk with recent hard activated, people that just cross the threshold. They are great, but they also remember a lot. 2, depending on your product, depending on the pain on when the old solution broke, the pain of finding a new solution, the pain, like the amount of trauma that was generated through the whole process. Maybe if pain was really high, you remember every detail from something that you did 5 months ago. But if it was kind of like not that important, not that painless, even if it's still like a switch that you had to do because you needed to do that task, but everything was kind of small and quick, maybe you don't remember something that you did like 3 weeks ago. So you have to keep both variables in mind. Try to find for recent ones, but try to understand how is like the experience, the general journey for them, because maybe you can talk with older users. And based on that, make a decision. If you realize, look, when I talk with hard activated, they don't remember this, then we will need to talk with a lot of them here and see how many find people like them that go to the other end just because there was this block. So you're kind of triangulating things here, makes things a bit harder. But if they don't remember, they don't remember. So keep that in mind. Now, how to get them on a call? Hard activated and hard activated plus, they love you. So it should be easy. But easy doesn't mean that you just send them an email, can you spend 1 hour with me just because? No. Make it interesting. Like, what's in it for me as a user? Like, I'm going to spend half an hour. What am I going to get out of this? It can be that we are going to show them something, like propose them interesting stuff, a new feature, or let me upgrade your plan. And in exchange, like we talk every 2 weeks, that can be interesting too. Some companies complain they don't want to talk with my customer support or my sales team. Yeah, of course they don't, because they believe that you just want to upsell them. But maybe they are interested on talking with a developer or with the CEO. Or if nothing works, okay, go for the gift card, incentivizing them, trying to just get a conversation. It's not really gonna buy us anything a lot, but also not a great sign that people is super excited just with things that you are showing them. But in any case, if you're gonna do it, do it. Don't do a raffle. You talk, you get the car. Not like if you talk with us, 1 out of 100 are gonna get, like, come on. And as we said, as recent as possible. 1 month, the 1 month probably didn't have time to get here. But if somebody gets here in 1 month, yeah, talk with him. What about talking with the recently inactive? As I mentioned, it's harder. So how do we talk with these people? The best way to talk with an inactive user is creating a relationship when they are active. Talk with them from the very beginning. Include personal services like, okay, you just sign up, you call them, I'm going to be with you, I'm going to help you with everything you need. And you walk the journey with them. And even for consumer products, maybe it's not on the phone, but you can try to interact with them, and some of them will really appreciate that support. And you are talking with them, and you become their friends, and you're collecting a lot of data. And when they drop, it's much easier to ask them like, okay, now explain me the reasons why it dropped. They will reply your emails, your messages. So if you think about it, what I'm saying here is don't talk with these people as a conversation to map anything. Like, I talk with them, they look like this, and it's okay, and you move on. Because you don't know if it's gonna work or not. But you can keep collecting data and then see if it works or it doesn't. Complete the story because they are your friends and you keep talking with them. Then you can use that. And if you think about it, this process of going with them here, helping them, understanding their challenges, that is activation. Not sending push notifications or giving them badges or whatever push that we can imagine. So don't make this like we're going to do a one-off set of conversations and that's it. No, make it an ongoing process. Like, are you going to do this for every single user? No, not every single user will want to talk with you either. But you can pick some of them and have this as an ongoing thing that keeps bringing you insights about your customers. How many conversations? We're going to do 5. And if we can get 5 of the HA Plus, then we can move to the HA. 5 with the recently inactive that are hard to find. And because we didn't create a relation yet, it's going to be pretty hard. We can try at risk. And then 5 again. So that is 20. 5, 5, 5, 5. Why? That is usually enough to see patterns. And if you don't see patterns, you want to repeat again. And maybe it's like 30. But if that is the case, then look at the master list that we discussed. You can add more criteria. Remember, 1 user per row. You can add more things. And subsegment that like, okay, they're using this feature a lot, or they are doing a lot of core actions per week. Something that maybe is telling you their use case or the situation is kind of similar. So narrowing it down, we can see patterns. Usually with this 20, you will start seeing like patterns on both ends, and with the contrast, like understand like what is working and what is not, who is who, and why they end up here, not there. How many customer instances should I expect out of this exercise? Great question. If we have the funnel, remember we think, we assume everyone has the same task and everyone kind of looks similar. Yeah, everyone comes here to edit photos and they are community managers. What happens in reality is that this is what is going on. What we are seeing is the average, but it's the average of different funnels. Funnels of people that maybe come in smaller numbers, but it works really well. And most of the ones here, the HA Plus, yeah, belong to this group. Another group that blockers are more important, so yeah, you get some of them, but few get to the end. But it's usually because there are blockers in the funnel, not because they are like these ones, where it's like, no, the product doesn't fit at all. Like I tried, this is not it. Like the change is needed for a good fit is much bigger. So this is the true picture that we are looking for. Expect something like 5 or 6. Depends a lot on your product. Obviously, something like WhatsApp that can be used for like 200 different tasks is going to be much broader than something that is a photo editor for beginners. That is going to have 4 or 5. Where 1 or 2 are going to be in this category of pretty close. If we change a few things, this could work. And hopefully 1 is going to be like, this one is great. Let's see if we can find more like them. And what do I do with this information? Okay, so this information, this completes the discover step. But before we align everything, before we make decisions, before we jump into solving blockers, we need to choose one. We need to define a strategy. And for that, we need to understand the criteria for their strategy, understand the different segments that we have, understanding the journey ahead to become a default solution. All of that, the next session. In the meantime, you have to talk with a lot of like green and yellow and red people. And they're out there waiting for you, of all shapes and colors. And they look serious, but they really love you. So get out and talk with them. Thank you very much. Good. Challenge. This is a big one because it's the whole thing. You have to prepare the bucket report, choose the ones that you want to talk to them, and refine your toolbox of questions to get the stories right, and map them. You will do one of these maps per conversation. And this is the tool that allows us to see the patterns. If not, you just have pages and pages and pages of conversations and you don't know what to do with that. Which means that you have to do 20 customer instance maps. That is the challenge for this week. Hey, how was the session? You can show your pool liking it, or if you have any doubt, leave a comment below and I will make sure that it's replied. Thank you very much.